Hello, and welcome to the Long Road Podcast. The journey goes ever on with The Long Road, brought to you by Artisan Creative. This episode, because it's short, it never outstays its welcome. In this episode, our book club discusses The Uncommon Reader by Alan Bennett, exploring themes of late life discovery. Steve Bonham shares tales of vagabond living, in particular sauntering. Kev Moore updates us on his Camino journey, and Chris the Bishop Lydon delves into the emotional depth of cooking eggs. The Long Road Podcast, where authenticity meets adventure. Join Steve Bonham, Kev Moore, and me, Chris the Bishop Lydon, from the renegade Americana band The Long Road, as we defy typecasts with our very own brand of quirkiness and rebellion, shaking off the stereotypes of sex, drugs, and suffering. Get ready for ridiculous tales, offbeat musings, and downright daft moments. Tune in for laughs, tunes, and a rebellious spirit. Hop on the wild ride with the Long Road Podcast from Artisan Creative. Greetings, I am Chris the Bishop Lydon. A pleasure to have you back with us for another slice of bonkers long road life. Greetings to our listeners from all around the world as well. Here's hoping we haven't mangled your beautiful languages in our attempts at international hellos in this series. Maybe listeners can suggest a new way for us to open our three-way chats. Something, provocative but authentic, interesting but not too taxing. Drop us a line. So a quick roundup of what things you can buy from us or listen to from us. Our Hard Country album is out now on streaming. Check it out. You can also pre-order the Hard Country 12-inch vinyl edition. Head to thelongroadband.net for more information. Out today is a brand new track from us, linked to our project that we've been working on all year, Stumbling Over Eden, and the new children's book that Steve and I have produced called The Spirit Dog. More on that in just a moment. Don't forget, if you like what we do, consider buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/thelongroadband. Support all things Artisan Creative at our Patreon, patreon.com/artisancreative. But before we get to the main part of today's podcast...
This is a sneak preview of a new song from Steve Bonham and The Long Road called I Could Write a Book. There's a wonderful story behind it, which we will get round to in later episodes of the podcast. In the meantime, sit back and enjoy. That old road didn't know my name. Long with you, I walked it just the same. Far horizon from a different shore. Under the sun and a diamond sky, heaven could wait where the river runs and the eagle flies. Stay with me, my brown-eyed friend. Long the trail I thought would never end, kept to watch as the evening falls. You stood guard where the darkness creeps, the wild dogs howl, the wind cuts through and all spirits sleep. So I remember you. So much wisdom in your look, and I remember you. So much there I could write a book. Guess you were the silly kind. Dusty way was always on your mind. I can see your face when I'm feeling low. In the hard days of summer, in the shadows of the sun, all of the air, the edge of the deep before the day's begun. So I remember you. So much wisdom in your look, and I fortune greet you evermore. May you find shelter from the coming of the storm. Kind hands and a place to sleep beneath the light of a high yellow moon. Safe home again on a caravan across the sea dunes. So I'll remember you. So much wisdom in your look, and I'll remember you. So much there I could write a book, write a book.
The three of us together again for our silly podcast chats. We're spread across the planet, as not quite so far as usual, perhaps. Steve's at home in Derbyshire. Hello, Steve.
Vitam! Oh, she has a very strange accent. I apologise to one of the great nations of Europe.
Say it again for me one more time.
I'm going to say it very quietly. Vitam.
Vitam.
Well, whatever nation it is, it sounds like one of their cheeses.
Yeah, well, this is getting worse. We're digging ourselves a big hole.
Yeah, I tend to cut out these bits. Start digging out the holes. Give me something to leave as an intro. Vitam.
Can't we just say Polish and move on?
Polish and move on. Great. What a good idea. And hello, Kev. You're at home in Spain, I believe.
I am, and I would like to greet you with a very firm ni hao.
Very firm ni hao.
Well, that's Mandarin.
This week we're doing another of our, I suppose, book club really things, isn't it? It's quite nice to have a little impetus to read a book every few weeks. And the book club this week was actually my choice. And the book we're reading this week, or we've read this week, is called The Uncommon Reader by Alan Bennett. Now, why did I choose The Uncommon Reader? It's a good question, really. One reason was it's short, blissfully short.
Blissfully short. Yeah.
I hadn't quite remembered it being this short when I read it the first time, because the second time I read it, I think. But it was like, I was prepared for it to take several hours, and it took, I don't know, an hour and a half or 2 hours to read something like that. I was pleasantly surprised. And because it's short, I think it never outstays its welcome. Everything in it is sort of, it's there to do its job, either to push along the storyline or be a bit funny, and it doesn't hang around, which I really enjoyed. It's no spoiler particularly to anyone who reads the book. You find out very quickly who the Uncommon Reader is, and it being the Queen. And the book explores the Queen's descent. Descent, is that the right word? I don't know. The Queen's
no,
descent into madness,
into being a reader, and the feathers that ruffles. Probably having always, read. Although I don't think the Queen actually went to school, did she?
Not.
She was always
a question.
She was tutored. Yeah, she was basically.
Yeah, it was all.
And especially, I think once she found out, she was going to ascend the throne. I think basically she was just put on a crash course for the gig, basically.
Yeah, basically, here's how you're supposed to be a monarch in or what they thought of in the early mid 20th century, and. Yeah. That's all you're going to be taught, really, yeah. But anyway, so that's the sort of the idea of the book is it's that the Queen stumbles upon a mobile library in her grounds one day and takes out a book, and this sort of snowballs, and eventually she's boring anyone who will listen, and of course they have to a little bit, about the books that she reads and the writers she finds and the people she sort of finds interesting, the people she doesn't find interesting. I mean, I was never one for period pieces, and I don't know if you call this a period piece, because when was it? It was published in 2007, and I think that's when it was kind of set, 2006, 2007 sort of time. So not necessarily a period piece, but it's of a time, it's of a very famous, character, I suppose, even if it's, a character that belongs to the entire world.
The most famous, arguably. Yeah.
I can't remember when this came out, but there was a film called The Queen. Yeah. It starred Helen Mirren as the Queen. And for some reason, I just really love that film. There's something about it. Really, I really
have it on
latched onto
DVD.
it.
It's a great film. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not normally one for like period pieces or things like that, but it really got me. I suppose some of it is the fine line, which again you explore in this book by Alan Bennett. The fine line, or not so fine line, perhaps, between the truth, if there is such a thing, and what really happened, and reality, and a very gentle massaging of that away, or a very fierce scrubbing away. So you get everything from complete nonsense through to could that have really happened?
Yes, yeah.
You know,
it's literally that he's sort of sat there, hasn't he, and asked that question: what would happen if the Queen read a book?
yeah.
It's
a great big what would happen. Yeah.
I think too. It's the little bit we know of her late Majesty and her character. I mean, it kind of fits what you've heard, so you think, this is quite credible. And that's the gift of great comedy, and this is great comedy. Is it has to stay believable.
Yeah.
Yes.
It has to stay, no matter how mad and bizarre it gets. The lovely scene where she's trying to engage the president of France in a conversation about Jean Genet, and he clearly hasn't a clue.
It's superb, isn't it? Yeah. But I literally hear Alan Bennett narrating it. I can't help it. It's his voice. It has to be his voice, and that lends just such a delight to some of the lines that are delivered with acidic aplomb, and it's. There's just some delightful laugh out loud moments in it for me, and he explores the sort of ludicrousness of some of the palace ritual and the complete panic when she starts asking questions rather than how far have you come? It's a case of what are you reading? And they're like spluttering, oh my God, what do you mean? What am I reading? Leave me alone.
Because I've never been in a lineup with the Queen, but I've been next to one.
Yeah.
I've been nearby when the Queen has been going down and doing that whole, asking them the polite question thing. And I'd never thought about the preparation that must go into it, in as much as that they are probably prepped, as the book says, to answer a simple question like, where have you come from? How far have you traveled? How was the weather when you left this morning? Those kind of things. Whereas, because that's something that literally they can all answer. They don't have to worry about the fact that they've got the most famous person on the planet talking to them, asking the question. They can just answer the question. Oh, how far have I come? Yeah, I came from, 20 miles down the road, or I came from around the corner, or whatever. If they're suddenly being asked what book, what are you reading? It is terribly personal all of a sudden, and I really like that the notion that she could ruffle such feathers by asking a lovely question.
Yeah,
but it's completely against protocol.
Protocol completely collapses. Yeah, absolutely. And I if you'd allow me, I'd love to read a little bit here. There's the character of Norman. I just thought it was brilliant.
Yes.
I mean, when they say when he's like bundled off, and. Her Majesty is always anxious for the betterment of her employees, the private secretary said benignly. And though she is more than satisfied with your work, she wonders if you've ever thought of university. She goes, university, said Norman, who hadn't. Specifically, the University of East Anglia. They have a very good English department and indeed a school of creative writing. I have only to mention the names, and he reels off the names, because, yes, said Norman, we've read those. Wincing at the we, the private secretary said he thought East Anglia would suit Norman very well. What with, said Norman, I've no money. That will not be a problem. Her Majesty, you see, is anxious not to hold you back. I think I'd rather stay here, said Norman. It's an education in itself.
Yes.
Beautiful.
I love it. I love the wincing at the we.
Wincing at the we. I mean, my God, that's pure Bennett, isn't it?
I mean, I grew up with Alan Bennett in various forms. I suppose my earliest interaction with him would have been on like the Talking Head things.
Talking Head, me too, really.
Yeah. Like absolutely, just I mean, even now they come up occasionally on social media, little clips of them.
His genius is that he minds the mundane. He doesn't concern himself with huge events.
A bit in the book where she works out, she's been everywhere and briefed on everything. She says, realizes one could be rather good at a pub quiz.
Yeah. One could be rather good. He's got such a talent for that, for taking those little moments of just daily life, really. And he even finds the mundanity in palace life, which is interesting. But my God, I don't know if we want to spoil it for the listeners, but the ending for me, I finished it at 3:00 this morning, and I was just sat in bed laughing out loud.
Yeah.
Thought, what a beautiful ending that. And you just imagine the chaos that ensues that's unwritten afterwards. You know, like, oh my God, you know.
And I love some of the interaction in that last scene.
Yes.
When she's gathered a group of people, and she turned 80 that year, so that would have been 2006.
Yeah.
You can imagine particular politicians around that time who might have been involved, who might have been sat in that room, and the bristling to stay up to stand something again, sitting down.
Oh God, yes, the jousting there, that sort of
that question, sir, was rhetorical or whatever. It's like,
yeah.
I think just listening to us talk about it, isn't it? How much energy and fun we got out of that book?
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
we all loved it, and it's a long time, and I read it when it first came out, and then read it again yesterday, and I thought it's a long time since I've laughed out loud at a book regularly, like every page.
Something
tickled me, and I don't know whether that's just the curmudgeon in me, but that is genius. The comedy, and
it's thoroughly Alan Bennett.
Yeah, you now want it to be made, don't you? You want to see that in action now because it's so.
Kevin from New Zealand, who's a private secretary.
Yeah,
who's getting potter and potter. She keeps using his name.
Yes, Sir Kevin.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And then there's a bit where he's trying to talk to her about human resources.
Yeah,
and she says, in my day, we used to call it personnel. And then he said, well, actually, we used to call them servants.
Yeah.
And the thing with naming Alan Bennett in general, but particularly, I mean, I think with Alan Bennett in general, the sort of perfect sort of English politeness and sort of almost a tweeness about it. But then you'll suddenly get very sort of dirty and filthy just for a second. It'd be absolutely hilarious just for a second.
Yeah,
and then it's back to
then he's back. He throws a grenade in there, doesn't he? Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and I think there's one single fuck in the whole book, but it was a perfect fuck.
Yeah.
You know, it was the reaction. Yeah. One of the equerries or whatever. One of their reactions. Oh, I messed up here. Yeah, it's just like it's the perfect. Didn't need any more fucks.
No,
absolutely great.
Yeah.
And heartfelt as well, because although it's I don't know what Alan Bennett's opinion of the monarchy or the Queen was really. I don't know whether that is he Sir Alan Bennett, I presume is he a monarchist or is he a Republican? I don't know. But regardless, I mean, this character he's chosen, this sort of universal character of the Queen that everyone knows has their idea of. Obviously, chosen her and used her as a piece in this, but there's still the heartfelt the first half of the book, where you're starting to meet this version of the Queen and you meet her, her friend Norman, who becomes a really important part of it. Norman gets whisked away from us. And I was a bit
like, we're all rooting for Norman. Yeah, we're rooting for Norman.
Norman and the Queen. I was like, yes, come on, up against the
establishment.
Yeah, exactly.
But her revenge is brutal, isn't it? It's beautifully done. Beautifully done.
Love it. Yeah. Love it. One of the interesting things which made me think, and I'm sure Alan Bennett does this without really noticing, but when he put the sort of 2/3 of the way through, he talks about the Queen realizing that reading tenderizes you and writing toughens you up.
Yeah, great.
And it's like, you start to explore that a bit. You go, yeah, okay, fine, yeah. We can all see this in our lives, can't we?
Yeah.
The other thing I love about Alan Bennett in general is #content. Content. Not with this book, but with his other things. He'll write a play. They'll turn the play into a book, then turn the book into a film, and everything he makes 3 times.
Yeah,
he's realised that's the only way to do it. If you're going to make it good, make money out of it.
Yeah,
and good on him.
Yeah, good on him. Yeah,
not with this book, but like the History Boys. It was a play than a big film, wasn't it? The woman in the van,
Lady in the Van. Yeah,
started off as a book. Lady in the Van was a book. And then a stage play, then a film, and it's like this. Like, good on him for utilizing and they're all in the last 25 years. The big hits. Yeah. I mean, History Boys was probably his biggest thing. It was 20 years ago, was it? 2005, 2006.
I know there was the Madness of King George.
Madness of King George. That was the first big one, and that might have been the very first thing of his I saw properly. And even I mean, that was in the early 90s, wasn't it? 92, 90. 3, and I saw the film version, and then I more recently saw the stage version.
Yeah.
But even as an 8-year-old or whatever, it spoke to me. I got it.
Yeah.
My probably apocryphal thing I heard about is Madness of King George IV, wasn't it?
Was it the 3rd?
But in America, they just said the Madness of King George.
Yes.
Because if they thought they put 4th or 3rd after it, everyone would assume that they'd missed the first 2 and this was a sequel.
With a sequel.
Yes, exactly, yes.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes.
Not so.
Yeah. Good on him. So I think I probably guess our reaction sort of summary, but it sounds like we all enjoyed this book.
Very much, yeah.
We did. Yeah. Very much so. It's a delight, a tickle.
Yeah.
So yes, if anyone out there fancies a few hours of a nice gentle read, but will have you laughing out loud.
If you can put it down on your bedside table and go to sleep chuckling, it's done its job, hasn't it?
Yeah, it did its job. Yeah. So that was The Uncommon Reader by Alan Bennett.
Vagabond Way, Part 6, taking the unbeaten path, sauntering. I'm really enjoying Kevin's weekly account of his Camino adventures. He's got away with words, that boy. I particularly relish the sense of time suspended that runs through his tales. Our usual idea of time is a space which you fill with things to do, lots of interruptions, frustrations and procrastinations. Something that is stolen from you every day. Something you never have enough of. Time suspended. Kev meets people. He talks to them. He gives them attention. He stops for coffee and more often than not accompanies it with a piece of cake. Some days he beasts himself to get to the next shelter, but on other days he takes a day off to remark upon where he is or just a few miles. Whatever, his pace is his own. He is sauntering. That is the way of the vagabond. The best journeys in life are for their own sake, not about getting from A to B. Some people, it seems, are desperate to clock the miles. They don't walk in a landscape. They walk grimly through it, determined to get there. Wherever there is a point on someone else's map. Perhaps the worst of these are those challenge walks, 200 miles in 24 hours, ascend 3 peaks carrying an orangutan. Never mind the blisters, the tremulous knees, the palpitating edge of cardiac failure. Just get there. When I was in school, I had 2 friends of mine, Philip and Tim Goodwin. Philip was a good man, but he was a swot. Tim was equally bright, but surprisingly mischievous. They were one of a handful of students who had, for some reason, decided to do Latin as an extra subject. One day, Philip missed the lesson for a dental appointment or some such. But lickety-spit keen that he was, he phoned up Tim to get that night's homework, a translation of 10 sentences from English to Latin. Tim saw his opportunity. He dictated carefully the first 3 or 4 sentences exactly as had been given. The next 2 or 3 he added an odd word or 2. The remaining 3 became increasingly surreal. Sentence 10 he offered as the Roman soldiers marched so fast they couldn't see the countryside. Now, Philip was a dutiful boy, and perhaps also a rather unquestioning one. Sentences were carefully translated, even though he found towards the end they were rather difficult. In the class the next day, the teacher asked each boy in turn to translate a question. Philip got number 10. Milites Romani tam celerite agram videre poterunt. The Roman soldiers marched so fast they couldn't see the countryside. Stayed with me, that image of walking along, so determinedly wrapped in the effort of getting there, you couldn't see where you were. This is not the vagabond way. The vagabond way is to take your time, for that is the purpose of being a vagabond. A vagabond saunters. The great American writer Henry David Thoreau wondered if sauntering was a French word derived from a medieval conman known as sauntering. This was someone who begged alms to go to the Holy Land with no intention of going there. Or perhaps it came from santé, which in French means without land or home. Either way, to such walkers, destination is of little importance. Walking needs to be entirely undertaken for its own sake and at a particular pace. Research into neuropsychology of walking shows that the most significant positive benefits come from light to moderate paces of no more than a mile every 20 minutes. This has positive impacts on psychological well-being, including lowering depression and reducing pain severity. Quite marvellously, these positive effects are not found at greater speeds.
Welcome back to Kev's Cafe Corner. If you remember last time, dear listener, I'd managed to reach the fabled cafe en route between Negrera and Alvaroa, stage 2 of my Camino between Santiago de Compostela and Finisterre, after a circuitous and somewhat calamitous 10-kilometre detour. So, I'm finally sat cooling my heels and drying my socks, having ordered a large breakfast. One of the joys of the Camino, which I've probably mentioned but bears repeating, is the ability to wolf down huge meals with zero guilt, as it's basically like throwing coal into the hungry furnace of a relentless goods train. As I was tucking into it, one by one my fellow travellers arrived. Daisy, to my delight and amazement, had decided to forego the bus and decided to actually do some walking. She was soon joined by Chorun and her son Matty. Matty was just 12 and was doing amazingly well. We sat for a while together, sometimes chatting, sometimes in companionable silence, letting the rays of the rising sun warm our faces, and more importantly, dry my socks, sodden as they'd become after my argument with a river in the dark. Yesterday's forecasted promise of fine weather had been delivered, and my bright yellow poncho remained happily tucked into my rucksack. In fits and starts, we ended up walking together. There was a point not long after the cafe where there was a choice to take a greener route, and in looking for it, we subjected ourselves to another unnecessary kilometre or so, not to mention a couple of hills. Still, nothing ventured, nothing gained. We stopped at another cafe about 10 kilometres away by the roadside with a delightful dog that was untethered yet seemingly incredibly well trained to avoid the cars that would hurtle past, perilously close to the cafe tables. The stop after 10 kilometres seemed a bit decadent, but we were grateful for it in retrospect, as a little further along the trail we had what was probably the hardest climb of the route. I should also point out that I added another unnecessary half a kilometre to my walk because I left my staff at the cafe and I went back for it. If you've walked a Camino, you will know why I went back for what ostensibly was just a piece of wood I found at the roadside. So we began to climb, Joran and Matty, younger and fitter, were managing it pretty well. I less so, but I was pleased with how I managed to dig in and press on. When you're pushing uphill, the staff actually has a real practical use, and it really helped me get up there. Daisy, our 20-year-old Taiwanese student, was managing less well. When we reached the top, she plonked down in the seating area thankfully provided. Drawing deep breaths myself, I looked out at a rather nice set of viewing binoculars with which to enjoy the incredible panoramic vista of the Galician countryside, and I couldn't help thinking the money might have been better spent on a defibrillator. After a few minutes, me, Joran and Matty were ready to continue. The trail looked like it was still heading upwards for a while. Daisy looked up and said, "I can't." We all felt a bit crap leaving her, but the nature of the Camino is you take it at your own pace, and everyone's pace is respected. A couple of kilometres downhill, we came upon a really nice cafe, an albergue. I stopped for a coffee, but Joran and Matty, after getting their Camino stamp, or sello as it's called, decided to press on. Outside the cafe was a life-sized pretend cow. It actually had rubber squeezable udders. Matty had decided to squeeze one and water came out. I declined the possibility to fill my water bottle at this point. So I was sat alone with my thoughts in the albergue cafe when I got a tap on the shoulder. It was Daisy. She'd made it down the hill and decided she was going to stay at this albergue for the night. I was happy for her, as I knew she couldn't have continued. She may get the bus to Finisterre tomorrow. We said our goodbyes and I headed off alone once again. The beauty of the Camino is the wonderful moments of camaraderie interspersed with blissful solitude. It really does nourish the soul. As I walked the last few kilometres to Alvaroa, I was befriended by a dog. It took me right back to my transcendent experience with one on the Camino 4 years ago. This one was a beautiful German shepherd. It would walk serenely beside me for a while, then head off to explore old outhouses and the like whenever the whim took him, but always returning. He was my constant companion until I saw the sign indicating I'd reached Alvaroa, and then he disappeared. I finally found an albergue in the town. The sun was shining, and as I reflected on a beautiful day, I saw Joran frantically waving from a table outside the adjacent restaurant. "You made it!" she exclaimed, sounding a little too surprised for my liking. We enjoyed a drink and just took in that lovely feeling when you've just completed a successful Camino stage. I suppose you'd call it quiet satisfaction. As I sat there, I felt a wet nose nudging my hand. The dog! I petted him and he sat at my side, content in the knowledge that he'd guided me safely in. Next time, early starts, evil spirits, and dinner with friends.
It's rare, perhaps, that food genuinely moves me to tears, being so good. But that did happen to me this week. I ordered a calzone pizza, which came with a sort of, vaguely traditional fillings for a calzone. Ham or salami, pepperoni, something, tomato, cheese. But this one also came with an egg inside, which was a little unusual. And also this calzone, it was a full-size plate rather than sort of folded over. It was called a Vesuvius or something like that. It had a sort of volcanic-style eruption of tomato sauce across the top. Anyway, it was, as I say, quite large, fully circular rather than semi-circular. It meant there was a sort of a little rim of pizza dough without much filling, and sort of the filling was slightly squashed in the middle. Now, in the course of eating, I was keen to spread out the filling, so the dough bits all got a bit of filling. All the dough around the edge all got a bit of filling. It must have taken me a little bit of time to get through the first few bits of the pizza, because by the time I got to the centre of the calzone, I had quite forgotten the list of ingredients. So there was, I cut in and out oozed this golden river of egg yolk. I had quite forgotten about the egg. I doused a fork full of the toppings with the dough in the egg yolk and into the mouth, and I kid you not, a single tear rolled down my cheek. It was pure delight. Pure delight. Now, I'm a fan of a pizza with an egg on, but particularly if the egg could still be runny whilst the rest of the pizza and the rest of the egg is cooked. The chefs at that restaurant must have been particular wizards to achieve this. It was stunning. I was recounting this calzone tale to a friend over lunch a few days later, and we brought us the topic of eggs in general and the wonder of eggs and in all their forms: fried, scrambled, poached, boiled. I just love them. With said friend, I shared my virtually fail-free method of doing a boiled egg these days, a Delia Smith method, I believe, which for me, like I say, just about never fails. But also over the years, I've just about perfected, in my very humble opinion, the poached egg. Now, as we finish this season of the podcast, I thought I'll leave you with my thoughts, tips and tricks on how to achieve a perfect poached egg. First things first, the fresher the egg, the better for a poached egg, I think. Boiled eggs, you've got a bit more leeway. Fried eggs, yeah, same thing. Poached egg, fresher the better. Next, room temperature eggs is key, I think. Some people keep their eggs in the fridge, fine. I don't, but room temperature, I think, is key. Now, boil a kettle of water, put a few splashes of... Now, for some reason, for me, it's apple cider vinegar. Put a few splashes of that into a saucepan, enough to sort of almost coat very thinly, just a very thin coating at the bottom of the pan. Then fill up the saucepan with water, bring it to a gentle boil. Doesn't need to be, bubbling wildly or furious. Just a gentle boil is fine. No salt at this point. No salt. Just the vinegar. I don't know the science of it really, but apparently salt will break down the egg whites, whilst vinegar will help coagulate the egg whites when the eggs first get put into the water. Now, famously, the sort of whisk and spin method has been touted as the only possible way that you'll get perfect poached eggs. But in my, uneducated opinion, it's a lie. I get perfectly good poached eggs without any whisking or spinning or anything. What I do though, is I decant my egg from its shell into a small cup or ramekin or something, so that when the water is at the right temperature, you can get your cup right to the surface of the water, and then plonk the egg in there from the lowest height, all in one go. If you crack the egg directly into the water, unless you've got insane cracking skills, and you don't mind your sort of thumbs being gently boiled by the water, the egg will go all over the place or spread too much. Anyway, into a little cup, easy. So once the eggs are in the water, after 30 seconds or so, they'll have enough structural integrity to be able to move around. If they're right on the bottom of the pan, for instance, touching the metal, I tend to move it around a little bit with the slotted spoon, just so that it's not in direct contact, floating free. Personally, I use my toaster as my timer. Once the eggs go in, the toaster goes on. Once the toast is toasted, the eggs come out, using a slotted spoon to drain on a kitchen towel. Butter the toast, put the eggs on, sprinkle of salt, a crack of pepper. Yes! Now, when you bring the eggs up out of the water, you want a slight wobble to them still. Well, perhaps more than a slight, a wobble to them, as they will continue to cook in their own heat for a little while yet. Now, if any of you come to me asking how to cook poached eggs to anything other than oozing golden egg yolks, I'm just afraid we can't be friends, and you should just move on now. So, having made these glorious poached eggs, serve them on toast, maybe with sliced avocado and bacon, or on an English muffin with hollandaise, or on the side of a full fry-up. Why not? A poached egg will elevate whatever meal you put it with. Enjoy. That's it for this week. Thank you for listening, wherever in the world you are. Subscribe to the podcast, however you get your podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts, Acast, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon. The next episode will be out in about a month. We're having a few weeks off. If you fancy buying us a coffee, you can at buymeacoffee.com/thelongroadband. It's dead simple, just to drop us a few quid to support what we do. It even accepts Apple Pay and Google Pay. Super easy. All of our music and merch is on Bandcamp, where you can help support a positive ecosystem for the music industry. Download, streaming, vinyl, CDs, it's all there. Go to thelongroadband.bandcamp.com. You can get hold of our books through the Artisan Creative website. Head to artisan-creative.com. We're on Patreon at patreon.com/artisancreative. Big thank you to our current Patreons for your ongoing support. If you'd like to support us, you'll get free digital stuff and merchandise in the post if you want it. Help us create something different, something that entertains and something that inspires others. Join us on the journey. Patreon.com/artisancreative. Thank you once again, brave adventurers, vagabonds and explorers, for joining us on The Long Road. Remember, the world isn't beige. It's authentic, it's rich and it's real. Embrace every last bit of it. Until next time, the journey goes ever on with The Long Road. Bye for now.